Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Jeff. I still didn't make a song. You know what I've come to the realization.
You know what's funny? I'm laughing right now. It's a genuine laugh too, and we just talked about this, so it's like, I don't know. It just struck me as funny again.
So I've come to this realization that I'm just not going to do it because I'm not good at it, and I don't want to learn. And I'm kind of tone deaf, so I'm not very good at making music. But what I'm going to say is, if you, the listener, want to submit a theme song, we will happily welcome it. And I will free reign, whatever you want to do. We'd love if you put in like the phrase like "we don't care" would be great. And whatever you like from the show or hate from the show, whatever. Yep. If you want to make a song, let us know. Or just send it to us. I don't care. Podcast vs everyone at gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter at the Craig Powers or at pod vs everyone. Just if you have any ideas, or if you want to just like put something just like not too long, but just if you want to do it, maybe we got some creative listeners. I'll probably figure out some way to compensate you.
If you like beer,
but I just came up with this, so I don't really know. And and we the downloads haven't been great so far. So tell your friends. Yeah, we'll have more cash to spend on the song.
Well, maybe all the people who subscribed on Spotify, hopefully we're getting them sorted out, because
Spotify and Stitcher and.
Well, it's no joke. Like I watched our downloads drop off, and it was like, man, our downloads have really dropped off. And then it was like, oh wait, like Spotify, one of the Spotify feeds. Apparently, there's 2 Spotify feeds. One of the Spotify feeds stopped updating like, I don't know, 6-7 episodes ago, like in December. Stopped updating, and it was like,
we got emails that are like, hey, are you guys making?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people that was screwing up, but I have a feeling it might have been more than a few. So,
tell a friend. Like, if you have a friend that listens to like Stitcher or Podverse or like Spotify or anything that's not iTunes. iTunes seems to be fine. Everything else seems to be gotten screwed up. And they have complained to you about no new episodes. That's why. Just tell them you have to go find the other feed, and that one there's 2 feeds, because we merged with the Kook Center Hour, and that just all hell broke loose. I don't know if you noticed that we have 3 different iTunes feeds. It's bananas, but
it's definitely not the ideal setup.
No, so sorry. We've tried to get it fixed, but it's not getting fixed. But anyway, so we have a lot of admin stuff up top, but this is Podcast versus Everyone, episode
is
113. Good God.
Remember when we started this thing and we were like, I'll bet we last like 5 minutes.
Yes.
113, man.
Episodes. That is so much time listening to us.
It is.
So I'm Craig Powers. With me is Jeff Newser.
Hello. That's me.
Thank you for saying through admin talk. So let's dig into basketball again, which
do we have to?
A weekend that just started out so great and just ended so shitty. Let's look back at the happy part. WSU on the back of Isaac Bonton and some good defense, upset UCLA for the second straight year in Pullman. That was a blast. That was fun. Really beat the shit out of them and just kind of gave it back a little bit at the end, but it never really was close at the end. It felt like they were, going to blow it.
I know. Anybody who follows you on Twitter, you took the little, you took the Ken Palm, win probability graph, and like compared it to how we were actually feeling in the moment. And I thought it was very accurate, actually. Like, it was just like UCLA, basically it represented that UCLA was going to win right up until the last second when, okay, fine, we're finally going to win. And I mean, I put out a tweet.
There's 3 seconds left.
We might win. Like, I tweeted, I never got within 7. We had it the whole way. Like, it definitely did not feel like that. It was never less than a 3-possession game, though.
Yeah, I think UCLA at one point got a steal down 7, and I think Jaime Jaquez had a 3-pointer, wide open 3 in the corner.
Yeah.
And I think I said, right, he missed it, and I was like, if he would have hit that, we were definitely going to lose. Like, if that went down, I think there was still over 2 minutes left at that point. It's like, oh my God, we were definitely going to lose if he didn't hit that. But yeah, so that was great. Bonton, again, just electric. He started out really slowly and then just turned it on. I think there was probably about a 20-minute stretch when he scored most of his points and just blitzed UCLA. And then, of course, you know, the 3-point shooting from Jazz and from DJ was huge. And it was great and I think we saw against a team like UCLA that plays so many wings, you know, that plays such a small lineup, to have Ryan Rapp and DJ Rodman back defensively was a big deal.
Yep. Yeah, it made a huge difference because, you know, UCLA basically plays one big man and then like 4 dudes who are like 6'5" to 6'7".
And then sometimes they play that 6'5" kid, that athletic 6'5" guy, I can't remember his name, but that athletic 6'5" kid, like, as the 5.
Right.
Let me see, his name. But yeah, he was like guarding Deshaun Jackson in the post, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? But yeah, so it was nice to be able to kind of match them like wing for wing and stuff on defense, and they just weren't as open. And then of course they also missed some damn shots, which was nice.
Yeah, that was nice. Not shooting 70%. From all over the floor was definitely a nice difference. So
Jalen Clark, 6'5", 195, was playing center for spurts in that game.
Yeah, and they were real thin up front. You know, Hill didn't play. Riley was in foul trouble like the entire night. He fouled out in 10 minutes. 10 damn minutes he fouled out.
Noah didn't have a great game, but he came out right after halftime, and they drew up a play for him to slat the same play they ran twice, where he was getting a back cut basically.
Yep.
And that put him on Riley, and he was able to draw 2 quick fouls on Riley, put him at 4 fouls like right away in the second half. So like he went from 2 to 4 like immediately.
Yep.
And that was great.
His 5th foul ended up being an extremely stupid foul too. And so like I think didn't he try to like step in and draw a charge or something and was like way late or something like that.
Yeah, and it canceled out an a dunk. But then you're that's fine.
Yeah, it worked out okay. Yeah. So, you know, so Mick Cronin was left with, you know, 2 options. He was either going to play some extremely inexperienced centers. One
Mac Etienne.
Yeah, and one kid is apparently, I didn't know this until the game, and then they told us 14 times, but I think it was Etienne was literally graduated from high school in December. And then enrolled and started playing because this year doesn't count for anything. So, you know, he's not burning up a year of eligibility. So they just he enrolled in January and started playing. And so he played 14 incredibly ineffective minutes. You know, he did have some rebounds, but didn't really do much else. And so of course Cronin says, all right, well, let's just go hyper small, turn up the pressure, press. And then of course, that worked, and that was the part where we all started, you know, getting the butt pucker.
That
wondering
was where
what was going to happen.
That was where Noah, who had fouled out on some just not bullshit fouls. His 5th foul, where it was like a rebound and he was behind and didn't even touch the guy. Yeah. They called that was his 5th foul, and he's just got a reputation, and they're gonna. Yep. They're going to call him and Effa between the 2. They were both there. They were going to call it on one of them. Yep. But yeah, so he was fouled out, not having, you know, your kind of secondary ball handler. having a third ball handler on the floor would have been nice with him and Rapp and Noah. And then Rapp just wasn't ready for that moment, I don't think, quite yet.
First moment of the weekend that he wasn't quite ready for. But it just, young, inexperienced team. You don't face a press very often. I mean, Oregon's press was more of really a kind of a show me press. Like it's really just kind of designed to slow you down a little bit, to be honest. It's not really designed to generate turnovers. And so it just, you don't see very often. And by the way, when we played Washington in Seattle, the same thing happened in the last, 6-7 minutes, right? Washington's like, all right, well, geez, we're down by 20. Let's turn it up. And then we sort of fell apart for a little while. That one obviously was a little bit different, partly because what you said, we had Noah. We had Noah in that game. He had some nice finishes there down the stretch, and everything turned out fine once we kind of tweaked a couple things. This one without another ball handler, I mean, we're already sort of low on ball handlers to begin with, and so it showed up. But like you said, they missed a shot at a critical moment. We end up kind of making the free throw line march, and everything turns out a-okay. So always good when you can beat UCLA. I think you pointed out that Kyle Smith now has about what'd you say, about
10.5%.
Yeah, 10% of our wins all time.
10.5
against
10.5% of the wins,
because we've had so few of them.
Two of the 19 wins.
Yeah. So could have been even more. Like there was the third game last year we lost in overtime. Very easily could have won that one. So
yeah, the Jeff Pollard 3-point barrage game.
Yeah, he could have had three. But at any rate, yeah, it's a super awesome win. I mean, anytime you beat UCLA is great. It's never going to be quite a fair fight with them because they're always going to be loaded. And to be honest, I think Cronin is, he's doing a hell of a job down there already.
In how their defense has improved.
Yes, and when their defense defense really comes around to what he preaches, they're going to be scary because they'll have the offense intact and the defense will be a top 50 defense, and then they'll be really good. I know everybody was underwhelmed by his hire. I think you and I probably were pretty underwhelmed by it too. But I think you can see, like, kind of seeing him up close now. He's a good coach. And he gets a lot out of his players, and they really buy in. They play hard for him. So yeah, they're going to be a good team for some time, and that's better for the conference. So any win you can get against UCLA feels great because I certainly remember. I'm not sure if we ever beat UCLA when I was in school, but I don't think we did.
Tony, the senior class with Weaver and Lowe and Calgill, they never beat UCLA. They beat Taylor Rochester, and Baines beat UCLA the next year in Poly, which was an even rarer occurrence. And
those UCLA teams were really, really good in those. Well, I mean, like a lot of the teams that they played in the Bennett years. But I remember they had Collison, and they just that 1 year in 2008. It was just like. We gave it everything we had.
Kevin Love that year.
And you could just see the athletic difference. That was a game where the athletic difference really really was the difference. So, always cool, man. Especially when you're not completely outgunned, playing against them. And so, and it was nice that Tiger Campbell kind of stopped trying to do much, which was sort of weird. Like he was kind of getting everything he wanted for a while. And then just kind of stopped doing that. So I was very grateful for that he stopped probing the lane. And maybe it was because he was afraid of going to the free throw line. I don't know. Like his free throws were kind of an adventure. But he scored 17 points on 9 shots. I mean, that's a pretty good day. It kind of makes you think maybe there was a little more meat left on the bone there. But at any rate, But
good. So that was good. And then, I mean, combined with the loss and then the extra loss on Saturday, that game could not have gone any worse. I mean, we figured we were going to lose against USC, and truthfully, they put up more of a fight than I even expected. And again, they got points inside against USC again.
Yeah.
They played really good defense. I know Evan Mobley looked like he had a huge game, but they made him work for those points more than anyone else has made him work for points. It was really just the point guard Taj Edey just going absolutely bonkers that won USC that game. And then of course the struggle, USC's defense is so good. That's what's so more impressive about Deshaun Jackson's, 18 points that he had, and just kind of was really abusing Evan Mobley in the post for like a solid 5 minutes, which was really impressive. Considering Evan Mobley is going to be a possibly number 1 pick in the draft this year. I don't know what else to say. I was impressed.
Well, how about this? Taj Edey has scored 20-plus points twice this year. No, wait, excuse me, twice. Yeah, it is twice. Twice this year. Both times against us. What do you do? He was just, Taj Edey is a grad transfer from Santa Clara who last year had an offensive rating of 96 at Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And it's 118 now. And in conference, it's 122. What the fuck? Where did this... it's so annoying.
Makes every teardrop shot that he shoots, every pull-up 15-footer, everything.
So irritating. Irritating.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got good,
him,
but good for him. But, man, it's
really
no
one else had a huge, a great game. Obviously, Evan Mobley got his, but again, like we said, it took him... he got 20 points on 13 shots, sure, but he also had 3 turnovers.
Yep.
His offensive rating for the game was only 102, and he's usually about 120 running. So you got to be happy with what you did with him. Obviously, he was superlative defensively, but they also, Deshaun Jackson was 8 of 12, being largely guarded by both Mobley, but they actually had to switch Evan Mobley off of him and put his thicker brother on him. Which was pretty funny, because they were getting him in. There was a risk of him getting in foul trouble, and they obviously needed him because he kind of carried them for a 5-minute stretch, to kind of put the game away. But yeah, it was a real bummer. They had their trademark scoring drought, and then when the game is over, you already have Isaac Bonton roll his ankle once. And then making a play for an inbounds pass that really wouldn't have mattered if they got stolen or anything.
Nope.
Bonton gets, collides with someone, and then that knocks him off balance, and he rolls his ankle really much more severely, and they have to carry him off. And obviously, it's at least bad enough to keep him out for one game.
Yeah, it looked real bad. I don't know. It was funny. After the game, Kyle Smith was like, well, he's tough and and it was just really? He basically had to be carried off the floor. I can't possibly imagine that he's going to play on Monday. And of course he didn't. And that was a huge problem. But yeah, it's...
USC, the 3-point shooting, I guess we ought to mention that. If we could have just hit a very normal amount of 3-pointers, we could have won that game.
Yeah.
But I will say
especially after shooting pretty okay, obviously against UCLA, better than pretty okay. And part of that is USC as well. They're long and they get after it on defense, and they really kind of...
There were a lot of tough 3-pointers. That they
yes,
sure.
they really force you... They make it so hard to get inside that they kind of force you to, take some threes that maybe are a little more contested than what you normally would settle for. That part of it, I don't know. I don't walk away from it going, I don't know, man, if we had hit, whatever. But I also think, 3 of 25 is you might expect that maybe you hit 2 or 3 more,
Yeah.
If you hit 2 or 3 more somewhere along the way, all of a sudden, you're right in it in the last, 5 minutes. I mean, we were only down 2 with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So, if you hit
after they hit a couple threes,
and if you hit maybe just a couple more somewhere along the way, you've got a lead heading into it. Instead, the final margin maybe isn't quite representative of of how competitive the game was. And then, of course, Isaac Bonton being carried off the floor, like literally carried off the floor because he cannot walk on his ankles. Yeah, that was shitty. That was super shitty.
And then we got Monday comes along, third game in 5 days.
Fuck.
For both teams, I'll say. We get the bad news that Bonton's going to play. We get the good news that Quade Green isn't going to play for UW, which makes the ultimate result all the more frustrating.
Yeah, well, maybe it wasn't good news, man, because whatever Sahonis did is probably a lot more efficient than whatever Green would have done.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, man, that's just a frustrating fucking game, man. Because, they came out completely lost.
Yep.
Rapp and Williams especially were struggling. They were your primary ball handlers, and they really didn't. They didn't start well. It was kind of a turnover fest for the entire first half. I mean, they started hitting some shots, and so they made it competitive again. But they got down by I think 12 like right away, and then they came back, and then UW pushed out again, and then it was kind of a little more back in. UW would push out a couple times, and WSU would pull close. But 13 turnovers in the first half. That's bad. They had 13 turnovers in the entire game against USC.
Yeah.
13 turnovers in the first half. I know we know the final turnover percentage, but that must have been close to like 40%.
In the first half?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your total number of possessions was 65, usually there are more possessions in the second half than the first half, at least a couple more. So let's say first half's what, like 30-ish possessions?
Yeah, that'd be 43%.
That sounds about right. That sounds about almost
43% of your possessions, you're turning the ball over.
0 points, 0 chance of points, 0, 0, 0. Like,
so even though they were shooting, they weren't even shooting that well. They were shooting decently well. But
they were successful on twos. Deshaun Jackson had a good first half. He scored 11 in the first half. Everybody else struggled, but it was good enough. And it's not like Washington was, Sahonis helped them finish strong there in the first half, but overall they weren't lighting the world on fire. And,
well, you realize partway through the game, you're like, oh yeah, Washington isn't good.
Right.
Especially without their point guard, we're with that. They're struggling like we are. They just have, and I said to you, I think I said in the Slack chat early in the game, it's like, I'm really terrified that Sahonis gets hot because we do not have the equivalent player that could do that. We don't have a guy that's going to go off like that. Noah is not the type of player that's going to go off like Sahonis can. We just don't have that a microwave player. And he did. He kept it going in the second half, and he kind of kept them afloat for much of the game. Stevenson also had a good game too, which is really between those two guys. Normally it'll be Bonton. If Bonton was playing Bonton on one and Noah on the other, and you think you're good defensively, but really the guards just got abused. But because the inside, they Roberts was ineffective. Bay didn't do that much. Although they don't really have anyone else that goes inside that much outside of Roberts. Riley Soren played for 2 minutes and just looked completely outclassed.
2 minutes,
and they took
2
him
fouls, and it was obvious
I really
he was
wish,
not going to be able to play in this game.
Really wish they would have played him more. That would have been nice. He logged 13 minutes in the first matchup. Would have been great if he could have logged 13 in this one.
Hopkins saw the same thing we all saw, which was that he was completely overmatched and had no prayer against our big men, particularly Deshaun Jackson. This is the thing with Washington, and I don't know that I guess our fans probably don't like hearing this sort of thing, but it's like, look, Washington has talent, and that's that. By the way, that's part of what helps us or causes us to laugh so hard when they suck. right? Which is you're going, okay, you've got all these 4-star recruits. Like, what's your fucking problem? Like, ha ha ha, you are losing all these games with guys who are supposed to be able to play. Sahonis is a former 4-star kid. Jamal Bay is a guy who's a Pac-12 Player of the Week this year, right? Because he had such a good weekend against Colorado and Utah, right? Cole Bajema, former 4-star kid.
Like, this is not the first time Sahonis has went nuts like this,
No,
but it's the first time where
not.
he was where he got to play 38 minutes and he was the guy.
Yeah, like so I don't watch Washington that closely. Maybe you've seen him more than I have. I don't know. I'm like looking through Sahonis's like game log, and I'm looking at his efficiency, and I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm thinking, how is it? Yeah, how's he only playing 16, 15, 20 minutes a night? Like,
yeah, it's especially just
weird.
The way he just like he very easily embraced like the go-to guy role. And what you can tell because of the way his usage, he's a guy that comes off the bench and shoots a lot. So you knew that he was going to shoot a lot. And what the fear was that he was going to shoot like this.
Yeah.
And he went 13 of 20 for 29 points. Didn't even need to take a free throw.
Yeah. He's only played 40%, little less than 40% of the available minutes this year.
And he's only missed 3 games. So
and he's only missed 3 games. Right? And so I'm looking at his minutes, and I'm going, okay, he played 23 minutes against UCLA. 14
this is the first time he's played only the second time he's played more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, he's only played more than 30 minutes twice. And he's only started 2 games. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at his offensive ratings, and I'm seeing, usage when he's on the floor. I'm seeing usage percentages hovering around 30%.
Which is Bonton level.
Yeah, which
stuff.
is like go-to guy level usage. And his offensive rating, okay, going back the last however many games, 131 against us. Now, remember, so for our listeners who, again, are kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, offensive rating is an efficiency measure, right? If you are using 30% possessions, that's like a go-to guy. If you're over 100 at that point, that's good, right? And so, like, if you start getting like 105, 110, 115 at those levels, that's really,
especially
really good.
a guy that he doesn't dish out many assists, so he doesn't get much efficiency from others scoring.
Right.
It's all his shooting.
Scoring. Okay, so he had a 131 offensive rating against us, right?
And he doesn't shoot many free throws. Yeah.
No. And he had 29 points on 20 shots, right? Previous game against UCLA, 22 points in 23 minutes, offensive rating of 118. Bad game against USC. Oregon, 15 points in 22 minutes for an offensive rating of 132. 22 points in 25 minutes against Oregon State for an offensive rating of 114. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, how is this guy not playing 30-plus minutes?
He's got it. Like, after what he did against WSU in the 38 minutes.
Like, is he injured?
I don't know how Hopkins can keep him off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, does he have an injury problem? Like, I mean, against Colorado, he had 27 points in 26 minutes.
Well, that's like you said, like your point. Like if Quade Green would have played and Sahonis played 15 minutes.
If Quade Green takes some of those shots instead of Sahonis, we probably win that game.
Yeah, the 32% 3-point shooter,
right.
the 45% 2-point shooter versus the 49% 2-point shooter and the 48% 3-point shooter.
Yep. If he takes some shots away, we probably win that game.
And
I don't know what else
nuts.
to say.
Like,
it's crazy. But Washington's got these guys. They got these guys who can go nuts, and you're just like hoping that none of them do. And one of them did. And you mentioned that our guards kind of got overrun. I mean, look, they fucking got overrun by Sahonis. I mean, the very last possession of the game,
really,
and Stevenson, very last possession of the game. I mean, let's just say it. Noah got killed.
Yep.
Right. Like Noah got killed on a little crossover, and that was it.
Yeah, good on Noah for he was really kind of the guy at the end that brought them back.
Yep.
But
getting free throws, making hustle
along
plays.
With Jazz, Jazz Kuntz, who kept him in it, and Deshaun Jackson as well. But yeah, Noah just he got the assignment and he let Sahonis get by him. Like
and we were zoning. We were zoning because we couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
We couldn't contain his penetration. We couldn't stop him. Noah couldn't
And
stop
it's just
him.
really
Rapp
not
couldn't
a
stop
guy.
him.
It's not a guy that typically attacks the basket that much. He really likes that stop in the key and his game-winning shot.
Let's put it this way. Here were his previous, however many games on 2-point attempts. UCLA 6, USC 3, Oregon 4, Oregon State 9, Washington State 4, Utah 3, Colorado 7, UCLA 4, Cal 2. Okay, so that's how many 2-point attempts he had in all of those games. He had 17 last night, 2-point attempts. Like, that was the same as his total from the previous 4-ish games combined.
Yep. The guard, it's just and Rapp is part of it too. And just Miles Warren's a walk-on for a reason. Like it's yes. Just like I'm gonna drag a kid that's a walk-on.
Yes.
Like he shouldn't a Pac-12 program should not be like having to use him, but we're really obviously with the injury to Jefferson Coulibaly and then injury to Isaac Bonton, where our guard depth is just killed to the point where actually our best stretch was Noah at the one and no other guards on the floor.
Yep.
Like it was Noah. Let's see, it was Noah,
Yakimovsky,
Kuntz,
Rodman,
F.A.
Or F.A.
Yeah,
F.A.
Rodman and F.A. Or Jackson.
Or Jackson.
One or the other.
Yeah.
And that's what they rolled with for the last 10 minutes of the game. And that was their best, because that was their best offensive chance, really. Yeah. And then they could just sit in zone and not have to worry about like the one-on-one matchups. But it was, it came back down the end, and you're not playing man-to-man defense the entire game, and then you got to cover a guy man-to-man suddenly at the end.
Yep.
And it looked like it. And
they played it poorly.
And I would have, ideally I would have wanted Effa to step up on there. I know you got to worry about Roberts down there on the block, but I think Yakimovsky was there to at least bother him a little bit. Maybe you worry about the open three in the corner. I don't know. Like you throw it off, but like you said, it's when as soon as Noah got beat, someone was going to be open.
Yeah, it was over.
So someone
Noah
was getting an open shot.
F.A. gets caught in no man's land. Yakimovsky actually played it great. Like as F.A. started to step up, Yakimovsky definitely stepped in front of, Roberts, boxed him out, sealed him off. Yeah. Like he had that walled off. Now, there was 3 seconds left, so maybe if F.A. closes out harder, steps up to stop that drive, it's an easy kick out to Stevenson. I don't know.
Or maybe Sahonis is not. He's not a natural distributor. Maybe he doesn't try to do that.
Maybe he doesn't,
But it's just a lot of what ifs. They should have never been in this fucking situation.
No, they shouldn't.
They take care of the basketball.
They ruined themselves in the first half. It really was. They only committed 6 turnovers in the second half. I mean, that's perfectly.
If you do that
acceptable.
every half, you're fine.
You're fine. But the first, you have 13 in the first half. You have all those empty possessions. That was it. And so kind of going forward, like that's the big scary part, right? Like,
like we said, I know people say that Bonton is careless. He looks like he's careless with the ball, and I get it. I get why you think that when you're watching it.
Right.
But, and Jeff said it last week, how much he has the ball and how much he shoots, and the fact that he runs as a point guard and how much he dishes, how many passes he throws, because he actually has a really very high assist rate.
Yep.
You would be fine with him running like a 23%, 25%. Like it would be pretty expected to him run like a 25% turnover rate, and he runs around 17, 18.
Yep.
And then
that's
saw
lower than the team is turning the ball over on 22% of their possessions, and Bonton's turnover percentage is like 18. So that is a net positive. There's no other way around that. Like possessions that end with Bonton end up in turnovers 18% of the time. That's 5% better than the rest of the team.
Oh, by the way, Andrei Yakimovsky had 1 turnover.
Yeah.
Do you remember what one that was?
I probably will once you point it out to me.
when he got a rebound and got elbowed in the
Oh
face.
yeah. Oh my god.
And fell down to the ground
So
because he got elbowed in the face
because
and they called traveling.
Because somebody tried to break his nose. No, they didn't try. Like, it was incidental, but it was still a fucking foul.
It's still a foul.
It's still a
and
foul.
I know they can't go to the review and like change it from a travel to a foul. That's not something they can do. They can only call it a flagrant foul.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like that should not be called a flagrant foul ever. But the ref should have realized that the guy fell to the ground.
It happened right in front of him.
Especially these refs that will call fouls that they expect to happen. For example, a Rapp got called for a foul. I think it was his fifth foul.
It was his fifth. He was just backing up, trying to stay out of the way.
Stevenson, I want to say, just backed out of the way, didn't touch a guy, but I think they expected him because Rapp hand checks a lot. Like he definitely gets called for that a lot. That's why he was in foul trouble. But he didn't do it that time. He just backed away because he was on 4 fouls. Ref gave him no benefit of the doubt, assumed he was going to hand check, and called a foul.
Well, how about the one on Jackson where he literally just touched the guy on the chest on the dunk attempt, and like didn't push him, didn't do it, like didn't swing at him, didn't do anything, like literally just kind of set his hand on his chest, like just sort of like lightly touched his chest. Guy missed the dunk. Ref calls the foul.
He definitely waited for him to miss the dunk to call the foul.
It was just fucking insane. So yeah, all that is so frustrating.
But yeah, they really could have taken the ball. But Noah Williams had ended up only with 4 turnovers, which is I think those were all in the first 10 minutes.
3 of them were in the first half. One in the second half.
FA really struggled.
Yep, his turnovers were a major
care of the
problem.
Ball. I think defensively he was really good and really huge. But, I mean, offensively, Deshaun Jackson is very clearly the best option right now down low. FA, especially because his three-pointer has left him. He had a huge chance to break that spell. Wide open 3 to tie the game with less than 30 seconds left. But his three-pointer is gone. He was okay down low, 4 of 7, but 4 turnovers, that's too much.
Yeah, the turnovers are really the issue because it's just clear, the more he plays, the more and look, he's hugely bright future. We love him, all of the stuff that we normally say. But it's just you still see those parts where he just doesn't have a lot of minutes under his belt. Not just at this level, but like any level.
Like they've said, if you watch any game, they'll say it over and over again. He'd missed 2 years in high school due to injury.
With injuries, yeah. And he's like a product of academies and like all that stuff. And so he just is not getting. He has never in his life gotten the game reps that like your typical American basketball prospect, even like non-prospect,
like AAU
gets, right?
Like Noah Williams playing for Seattle Rotary played like hundreds of games a year.
I would venture that Noah Williams has played literally hundreds more games than FA has in his lifetime. Like literally hundreds. And so there's a feel for the game.
Same with Deshaun Jackson, DJ Rodman.
Yep.
It's just those guys are just gonna have played a lot more basketball.
Yep.
But I mean, at the same time, he just made a few plays in the game where you're like, no one else. We have no one else that could possibly make that play.
Yep.
Like some rebounds and some block shots where you're just like, that's him.
On the whole, he had a good game.
But again, like Deshaun Jackson is just proving to be so good. Like I don't want to take we just lost to the number 168 KenPom team at home, and that's fucking frustrating.
Yeah, it sucks.
But if there's one takeaway, well, 2. Jazz Kuntz is back, baby. Or maybe he's here for the first time ever. He has had a string of good games.
Send your thank you cards to Ernie Kent. Woohoo!
Jazz, we see guys late in their career who were just nothing for a while, and you'll see them just kind of click.
Yep.
And for a lot of times, it's just they start hitting shots.
Yeah.
And Jazz, he's going to have a game when he goes 0 for 5, like at some point, I know, but it's fun to see him because he just, he's a kid that looks like he really wants to do well. He just doesn't always do well. I think his defense has been better. His rebounding has been better. He's just played well. He's playing with a lot of confidence, so it's good to see. I was bummed out I'm surprised that Rapp only had 2 turnovers. Honestly, it felt like more. I think. I don't know how many post feed turnovers we had in the first half. Like in the first 5 minutes, just trying to feed FA and Deshaun, just throwing the ball away. And what I most surprised was like Noah. I'm like, come on, Noah. Like we just talked about hundreds of games, dude. Like it's a post feed, make a fake, then throw the pass. Like we couldn't do that. Like we're just like telegraphing the post feed to like, here you Dub. We're throwing it to his right shoulder, bounce pass. Here it comes, and like it's just fake, and that's just standard post feed. Is you fake one way and throw the other, but whatever. So yeah, that game. So watching it, I was in my living room. Noah ties it up, jump in the air, and then 10 seconds later, I literally like crumple to the ground. Like, no,
I know.
No, why? Okay, Jeff, we're over time.
We are.
2 games coming up. 2 games coming up this weekend. Let's run through them real quick. Okay, so we got Cal. We should beat them, even without Bonton, but we saw the struggles both defensively and offensively that we have without Bonton.
Yep.
I think they'll have Matt Bradley this time around, so that's different.
He's been playing. Yep.
Yeah, so that we got lucky and did not have to play against Matt Bradley last time.
Well, and let's just point out Cal's coming off a win over Colorado.
Cal just beat Colorado.
9-point win over Colorado.
Yeah.
How?
I
don't know
will
how.
Say, just like from what Kyle Smith said about Bonton in the post-game presser, I would not expect him. Like I would be surprised if he's ready to go.
No, that does not look good.
Because he didn't really because he would have been more positive about it. So yeah, Cal is looking better because they got Bradley.
Well, and listen, Cal had before that win. I was just like, how'd they beat Colorado? Well, I mean, they were on a 7-game losing streak before that, but in that 7-game losing streak, they lost to UCLA by 4, Arizona State by 4. Here's another: Stanford by 6 and Utah by 1. So 4 of those games were 4 points or less. The others were sort of blowouts, but I mean, so Cal's dangerous, man. Cal's dangerous,
and if you
we
think
need our
about
guards to be a hell of a lot better.
That's what's terrifying is Bradley. If Sahonis can abuse our guards like that, especially without Bonton on the floor, Bradley can definitely do that. Like,
I will say this: Bradley's a different kind of player, though, right? Like he's a bully. He's a 6'4", 220 guard. Like he will bully his way into the lane. He gets to the free throw line where he's absolutely deadly. That's his game.
He's a
That's
good
a
shooter
different
anywhere
game
on the
than
floor,
Sahonis.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Hopefully him trying to get to the basket against our bigs, we can kind of divert some of his effectiveness. It's still, though, what scares me is, like I said, I was worried. Like Sahonis is a guy that can get hot and bury it, and like all it takes is one guy to get hot in a game like this where both teams are going to struggle to score, and then that tilts the balance. And that's the same thing in a game. Although, like Cal's not good defense. Like I don't know. Cal is better than UW though. It's scary, dude. Like
yeah, it's
because I don't know what
scary.
Like let's say Cal is 136 on KenPom. We're 113 right now. I would say we're probably with Bonton more like 100 or even a little higher. Without Bonton, what are we? More like 150, 160, 170?
Maybe.
I
mean, it's a toss up for sure. This game's a toss up without Bonton.
Yeah, even because right now, like KenPom, because these predictions don't factor in, the injury other than like the 3 games that Bonton misses, which 2 of them were pretty bad. It has WSU as 65% probability to win. It's a toss up to me. What WSU needs to do well, they need to dominate the defensive glass. They need to make life tough for Bradley because he's going to take the bulk of the shots.
Yep.
Like he's 14th in the country, takes 34% of the shots when he's on the floor. And we didn't have to deal with him last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he's tough. You know, Andre Kelly is annoying. Cuz he's just a big dude. I hope we can neutralize him. Anticevic is
that's the guy who scares
hot.
you. That's the guy who terrifies you. It didn't happen down there because every time he catches the ball, I swear to God, that guy never missed a 3-point shot against us until the last game. So that's the guy who terrifies me. So yeah,
and he's a guy that he's I mean, this is when you definitely know we're gonna roll with like I don't know. See, I don't see us maybe rolling with the two bigs lineup as much. Again, I mean, you might have to with Bonton out, but like, because Anticevic is not an interior player in any way, but he's gonna play the 4, and he's 6'8" and he's 230, so he's big, but he's gonna play the 4 and he's gonna stretch out your 4.
You figure FA can neutralize him though if they do go man. Like FA is a guy who can play,
I don't even know, like,
can guard somebody on the perimeter.
How often lately have we played mostly man? Like,
not very often, man.
Like, I think we've been a zone team for, and I hate it. I hate it.
I know. Zone is for cowards. I was looking back at our podcast versus everyone Twitter feed. Our very first tweet was zone is for cowards.
Kyle Smith, we love you, buddy.
We love you, but we hate zone.
I understand why you're doing the zone, but I still just, it's so hard to watch.
Yeah. I mean,
it's also 100% more frustrating when the other team scores when you're in a zone.
Yes, absolutely. Although I will say this, our zone does not suffer from a lot of the things that plague a lot of zones. It's not like we give up a ton of threes, and it's not like we also give up a ton of offensive rebounds. So I mean that sort of makes it so that you can kind of live with the zone a little bit. But you know, I'm always one who. Who advocates for man-to-man just simply from an attitude standpoint. You're getting after it. I mean, like, when I think of, like, Noah right now, like honestly, he looks like he's having a bit of a crisis of confidence, to be honest. He's had about, 4 or 5 games in a row that have been, not great. I mean, not terrible. I think there was one bad game in there. The rest of them have been just kind of but then, against Washington, we needed him to be a lot better than and he just kind of wasn't there. And I don't know if it's related to all the technical fouls. Obviously he had the foul trouble in the one game, but I don't know if there's a correlation there where he's just sort of like, like everybody knows he plays with that edge, right? Like that's how he motivates.
Yeah.
A lot of athletes do that. That's how they motivate themselves. Everybody else is a piece of shit, and I'm going to go out there and prove them wrong and all these things. And it's great. But when, now all of a sudden the stuff that, really kind of was that chip, you can't ever act on because the refs are just waiting to tee you up. I don't know if that's part of it or not, but it wouldn't shock me if it was.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today because obviously I think about WC basketball way too much. But Noah, I was thinking about Noah today, and that's exactly what I was thinking is like, it seems like when he stopped getting technical fouls is when he started playing worse. It's just like they were like, Noah, you can't do this. You got to rein it in. And so now he can't run up and down the floor and talk shit for 40 minutes. And since UW, and he just hasn't played as well. And we know he can play better.
Yep.
I'm just gonna. So what we gotta do against Cal, just. They're gonna give you open shots. You got to make the shots. Like you like, especially given that, I think we can do well defensively. I think we can hold them down even without Bonton. But I think even without Bonton, there's going to be open shots.
Yeah,
you got to
knock them down. 300th nationally in effective field goal percentage.
They're 12th in Pac-12 play. They don't give up a lot of threes. So look for, I want to see Effa have a good game. I want to see Deshaun have a good game. I want to see Noah get inside for some buckets inside. Yep. I want to see even Rap, we know he can attack the basket a little bit. Like, be creative. You're bigger than Cal's guards. Get inside, take some mid-range jumpers. You'll probably find something a clean look down there. It's just make fucking shots and you'll win. Like that's
and don't give the ball away.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Well, like, so I'm looking at our Ken Pom
Cal
page.
is not good. Like, they shouldn't be taking the ball away from you.
And this is the thing. So, like, our percentage, so the non-steal turnover percentage, I love this stat on Ken Pom, right? So not all turnovers are created equal, right? So, like, some are, steal turnovers are kind of the worst because those are the live ball versions. Those are the ones that typically result in breakouts, fast breaks, things like that. So those are the ones you want to try and avoid. And, we're not particularly good at avoiding those. Like our steal, so out of the, 21.5% of our possessions that end in turnovers, about, 9.5% of our total possessions end in steals. And that's not good. That's like 220th nationally. So that's bad. But then you look at our non-steal turnovers. We are 306. 12% of our possessions end with us doing something just fucking dumb.
Which, like, if you watch this team, like, you're not going to be.
Yes,
we get a ton of offensive. We get a ton of offensive fouls called on us.
Offensive fouls, passes that go out of bounds, traveling calls. That's all that dumb shit.
Travel. We travel like, oh god.
It's all that dumb shit. So
I will say,
55% of our turnovers. 55% of our turnovers are just stupid shit. Just stupid stuff, and Cal they don't take the ball away with steals at all. They're like one of the worst teams in the country at stealing the ball. Their non-steal turnover percentage is pretty okay. They do, for whatever reason, kind of benefit from some of those, whether that's forced or not. But man, if we could just like not give the ball away on this one, in any game really, but in this one, it sure would be super nice against a team that frankly does not do anything special to force you to give the ball away
or force you to even do anything.
Right.
So just to circle back to get inside, Cal is 311th at defending field goal percentage at the rim. They give up 64.6% at the rim, just one spot ahead of Cal State Fullerton. So get inside. Don't give the ball away. Dump it to Deshaun.
Yep.
Attack the rim, Noah. Let's get some easy buckets. Really, just don't lose to Cal, please.
No, for fuck's sake, no.
I mean, if we fucking lose to Cal and UW because Bonton rolled his ankle in the last minute of a game we already lost, it's just that's going to be like.
Yeah, I'm still not over the loss to Washington.
I've just been like,
so
I was in like
pissed.
I was just in like a haze all day trying not to think about it.
Still upset. So anyway, we should beat Cal anyway, but again, we've shown that we can sabotage our own chances. The guards really need to step up. That's the biggie, right? Like Noah, Ryan Rapp especially. Those two guys need to step up. Noah needs to get that edge back somehow. Maybe losing to Washington for the first time will kind of do it, but we got to get that fire back with him. Rapp's got to be decent, and frankly, TJ Bamba needs to not turn the ball over 3 times in like 10 minutes. Like right now we need him to play some, and right now but
he's going to get pulled immediately.
He's so inconsistent right now. Yeah. He needs to not, just basically take a giant dump on the floor, and he needs to give us something that we can count on.
Okay.
And maybe Kyle Smith will see what you saw, which is maybe we just go one ball handler and get a bunch of other dudes out there to play defense. I don't know, and shoot.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. We're way over our goal here. Stanford, really good defense. If Bonton's out, I see no way we're going to win that game. They're just going to lock us down defensively.
Seems unlikely.
You're not. Yeah. I think they're top 10 adjusted offensive efficiency. I don't even have it up right now, but I'm pretty sure they're like 8th or something. Stanford, there we go. They dropped to 22nd.
22nd defensive efficiency. Yeah, they've
well.
They've been a bit iffy lately.
But they they made it tough for us inside last time. It kind of baffles because they don't have like super tough guys inside that you think would, but they just have good interior defense anyway.
Yep. They just make it really, really tough to get to the rim. Like they've got a whole bunch of 6'8", 6'9" dudes who, are just very quick, and they cut off drives, and they just make it really, really tough to get inside. And so the twos you take are the shitty, hard to take twos.
And we have yet to figure out how to stop Oscar da Silva.
God. Thank God he's a senior. Please let him leave.
Frankly, no one has figured that out. But
I'm so done with him.
I think your best shot is what Utah did, is get him in foul trouble. That's your only shot. So dump it down to Deshaun, let him work on Oscar, and hope he just draws fouls. That's the only bad games that he has, is if he gets in foul trouble and it takes him out of rhythm, because he's kind of a rhythm-based player. But so that game, I don't know. Go nuts from three, please. I don't know. Do that. They give up a lot of 3-pointers. Go nuts from three.
That's kind of how we stayed in it the first time for a little while.
Exactly. That's if we win, go nuts from three. Get some offensive rebounds. They're not a great defensive rebounding team. So huck up some threes. Grab the rebounds. Dish it back out for three, because, as you said, Jeff, we're pretty bad at putbacks. Pretty bad.
Oh my God. So, you made the point that we are one of the worst teams in the country at finishing at the rim.
We are the worst team in the country at finishing at the rim.
Great. And for the longest time, we sort of blamed that on Bonton, right? Like for about the first half of the season, it was, well, that's because Bonton can't make a fucking layup. Like that's why we're so bad in there. But it's like now, after watching this team, it's like, wait, no. The reason why we're last is because our 6'10" guys get rebounds, offensive rebounds, and then they blow the putback repeatedly all the time. I swear to God, we haven't made a fucking putback all season.
Oh, don't worry, we're second to last now. Suck it, St. Peter's. God. What the hell is St. Peter's? What is that?
Isn't that in New York or something?
I don't know. But we are second to last actually, I can, Jeff, if you want, fuck it. We're already way over time. Let me just give me a second.
We had a plan to keep this under 30 minutes, dude.
We're at an hour, dude. Whatever.
Whatever.
People know what they're in for here.
That's true.
Okay, so our putback offense. Thank you, hoopmath.com.
They have a putback stat?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So our putback field goal percentage is only 50.9%.
Oh, my God. That's so terrible.
What do you think Deshaun Jackson shoots on putbacks?
Horrible.
33%.
Oh.
FA shoots 44% on putbacks.
Also horrible.
Vova 50. DJ Rodman 5 for 5 so far. Made every putback. But yeah,
like putback should be like a 65 or 70% proposition.
So
really,
FA. Well, not many guys shoot that high. I'll say if someone shoots 70% on putbacks, they're one of the best players in the country at putbacks. But
what is?
I mean, it's usually a heavily defended shot, but
sure. But still, okay, so what is it like? What's an average team? 60%?
I don't know.
55%? 58%?
I don't think. Let me see.
All right, now I'm going to
look. He has a leader.
You talk.
He doesn't have a leader.
He
doesn't have a leaderboard for this. How are you going to figure that out?
He has like a leaderboard.
He doesn't have a leaderboard. He doesn't have a leaderboard for. No, he doesn't have the. He doesn't tell you what the average is for the NCAA.
Okay, well, hold on. I'm looking. Because sometimes I can find these things on here. Anyway, what were you saying? Go forward with what you were saying.
FA has the most putbacks, 21, and he's only made 44% of them. And Deshaun is the next. He's only making 33%. Vova is only making half of them, and he's 100 feet tall. We're just not making shots on putbacks. It's funny. You said that to me yesterday, and I was like, I got to look at this. And I looked at it, and yep. Our guys that shoot well on putbacks don't get very many of them. Yakumovsky, Rodman. They're the guys that are coming in from the wing, and they're probably getting a more open shot, like when they're taking it.
Yeah.
So yeah, putbacks. Like you got to do better. That's what I'm saying. Kick it out.
Yeah, maybe
let's
that's
shoot
it.
A 3 on that.
Stop trying to put it right back up and just kick it out. Just get it out of there. Find a shooter, because those are high percentage 3-point shots. Like those are really good 3-point shots because the shooter's facing up.
Either the guard is either crashing for the rebound or trying to run, releasing to for a fast break opportunity. So a lot of times, often the guards are open if they stay in.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
But yeah. So make some damn putbacks, guys. Like
that'd be great.
A hole in our
That'd be
offense. Yeah, Jeff, we gotta stop this.
Yeah.
An hour.
We are the worst.
Okay. So we're gonna take a break, which we thought was gonna be 30 minutes ago, but we really knew it wasn't gonna be.
We had aspirations, though.
We got football shit to talk about. Always the good news in February. You only get good news in football after signing day and before spring ball. Only the good stuff. And then we'll talk about women's hoops, who had a shitty weekend, but still it's there for them. And then we'll talk about soccer and volleyball and all that. So stick around.
We're back.
All right. Quickly on beer. What are you drinking, Jeff?
So I had the one of the lovely beers that you gave me, the all Citra everything from Other Half, double dry hopped, double IPA. It's fantastic.
There you go.
Dude.
Yeah, it's a good beer.
Outstanding.
They're kind of one of the kings of haze. One of the well-known kind of kings of haze. So I almost drank a Other Half beer tonight because I thought that you were going to drink the Other Half one, but I went a different direction. I'm having a 15.7% barrel-aged stout from Westbound and Down Brewing. It's just called Bourbon Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout. It does not have a fancy name. It is just a bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout. I love it. Like so often these days, like it's the stouts come with like all sorts of stuff in them, but it's nice just to have a classic. Just the only adjunct, if you want to say it, is the bourbon barrel. And this is really well done. It's got a great body. It's boozy, obviously. It's 16% almost. Like it's boozy. You feel it in your nose, but it just still actually drinks surprisingly well for that. A lot of good dark chocolate, a lot of good barrel action on there. You definitely taste the barrel. Really well done. Good job, Westbound and Down, out of Colorado, out of Idaho Springs, Colorado. So I got that off Tavar. Again, I'm just gonna always say it, like they're like obviously they don't pay me to do this. It's just because I'll get money and you'll get money. So Tavar is a beer app where I get a lot of beers from all around the country, and that's where I got the Other Half beer that you have. No, actually, I got that from a different thing. But I do get Other Half beer. I have some coming from Tavar. So if you want $20 towards your first order on Tavar, you download it. Basically, they have like 3 or 4 beers a day, and you just choose, and then you can populate a box. You can actually keep pushing back the date and not have them send you the box for as long as you want. It's $15 flat rate shipping, which if you've ever tried to send beer is a really good deal. So if you use the referral number 26712, you'll get $20 and I'll get $20, and that sounds great to me.
That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for Jeff to.
Yeah, I will. I will eventually.
But yeah, so let's talk about fucking football. So obviously, off the heels of Jaden Delores' suspension for DUI last week, we find out that Ayden Hector, our star walk-on safety,
walk-on 4-star safety,
has also been suspended. And then today we found out, thanks to Theo Lawson, is because he tried to tried to buy alcohol at Dismore's with a fake ID, and then agreed to meet the officers at the Residence Inn. I haven't read the full story. I don't know. Like, I know there's a lot of fake IDs in Poland, people buying beer, but how can you not find someone to buy you beer, man?
Well, here's what I would say. Okay, so number one, this would suggest to me that there is perhaps, and this is probably a good thing, perhaps a culture on the team of not, like buying a bunch of alcohol for the younger players.
That would be great. That is
like,
good.
because that would be the you would think the easiest place to get it, right? Like Ayden Hector goes, hey, Daniel Isom or whatever, like, can you get me a rack of beer? Here's $20. It's like, okay, that would seem so. He, either A, he felt like he to get his booze, like, needed to do this. So if that's the case, that's probably a good thing. Like, just in a roundabout way. Like, the team's not the upper guys on the team aren't running around just buying booze for the younger guys, and that's probably a good thing overall. Okay. The other way to look at it is, okay, not to totally rehash how he got to Washington State in the first place, because everybody is I'm sure familiar with that story at this point. How a 4-star kid who had a scholarship offer to pretty much any place he wanted to go ends up coming to Washington State as a walk-on instead of going to, Stanford. And, okay, so at the very least, that entire situation made it look like this is a kid who maybe has some judgment issues, right? Like, regardless of whether it was maybe necessarily nefarious, there's a lot of, like, facts that seem to be in dispute about what exactly happened that night when he was in high school, when a girl was claiming sexual assault, not against him, but against somebody else, and he was nearby, and all of that stuff, right? So when you looked at it, you went, okay, at the very, 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 very least, he's probably guilty of bad judgment, right? Put himself in a bad spot, maybe didn't do as much as he could have done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, alcohol was involved there as well, right? So now here he is, walk on at Washington State, had a successful, 4-game freshman season. You assume if he's sticking around, he's on track to get a scholarship. Like, you figure sort of all those things are there. And then what's he do? He goes out and tries to fucking buy alcohol with a fake ID at Dismore's. Like, that is not the place. You don't go to a grocery store with a fake ID. You go to, like, the freaking Chevron and try to buy some beer at Chevron, where the guy working at the counter looks at it and goes,
I don't give a fuck.
either I don't give a fuck, or just looks at it and goes, bro, okay, listen, I'm not going to sell this to you, but you got to get the fuck out of here. Like, that's how he handles it, right? Dismore's, which is like a grocery store, and
with some corporate overload, man. They're franchise,
like
man.
they are going to try to, like,
they got that IGA sitting there.
They've got something to lose if they are selling alcohol to minors. Right, unlike your Chevron, that's selling.
Obviously, Chevron's still a corporation, but like
yes, but that's like a
gas station.
It's like the gas station's independently owned and operated. They're not, the guy working the night shift there doesn't give a shit. Like, when I got my alcohol from, when I was a freshman, it was at a gas station. Like, they're the one, and they're selling beer for like $5 markup and whatever. That's what you do, right? So I don't know, man. This. The high school thing, obviously far more serious than this, just sort of all around. But, kind of, again, it was sort of like what I said about Delora. Like, you start to wonder, is there a pattern of bad judgment here? And it's kind of starting to maybe look like that. And that's the hard part. That's the frustrating part. That's the unfortunate part is, you've got a talented quarterback who made a massive error in judgment by driving drunk. Thank God he didn't hurt anybody. So, so he is able to, redeem himself, hopefully, in the eyes of his teammates and his coaches. And then you've got this situation where, again, nobody's hurt. It's a victimless crime. And a lot of people are going to be able to just kind of go, well, what's the big deal? And I get that. If people feel that way, I don't begrudge them that feeling. but also at the same time, like, okay, this is a kid who was already, already at Wazoo under sort of odd circumstances, and this would seem to, maybe be a continuation of a potentially troubling pattern. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's the, as you mentioned, news in February is never good. And so that was one. And then, and then the other one, Jamire Calvin, right?
Yeah. So Jamire Calvin has entered the transfer portal. Obviously one of WC's top wide receivers, their best athlete, well, other than Travell Harris, but their
one
best
of the top recruits ever. Right?
But yeah, one of the best recruits ever. An athletic guy on the outside who can stretch the defense, was exactly what you need in this offense. Who has decided to transfer, and kind of what got people interested is these two things both dropped within 5 minutes on a Friday night. Like it was nuts. Like I think the women's team was playing, and it was like 5:00 at night. 6:00, something like that. Both these things drop. So you're just like, what is going? I think I dropped both of them in Slack, and like no one responded. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Do you have lives or something? Like, why is no one paying attention right now? And so this both dropped. So Jamire transfers, and Willie Taylor then tweets out, but then later deletes. But sorry, Willie, it's the internet. Yep. Everything is forever. Willie Taylor tweets just, "You see the trend," at about the same time. So, it's pretty normal for there to be turnover with a new coach, but it sucks when that turnover suddenly becomes, it sucks when that turnover suddenly becomes one of your best players,
right? You're always hoping that the guys that leave are the not very talented malcontents, right? Like that's what you want, is for those guys to go, and now you've lost the
grow farms in their basement or whatever.
Yeah, or the Blair Bombers of the world, those kinds of guys. Not the Blair Bombers, the malcontent. I don't know that. I'm just saying, like, guys who maybe can't
not
play,
very good football
maybe
players.
They just can't play. It's what you're kind of hoping for. So, to lose Calvin is a major bummer. And sort of full disclosure, I have not read the Coug fan story where he, because they put that behind the paywall, where he explained his decision. So I am flying blind on this. I do not know why he made the decision he did. It does not seem like it's made out of bitterness or anything like that. So, I guess that's good, but at the same time, and look, guys leave for all kinds of reasons. But we've lost a bit of talent, man. There've been lots of guys who have left, and I think of most of the guys who have left, you kind of think, maybe we're not sure what they can do, or maybe they're probably replaceable. Those guys. The Gunner Cruz, you kind of go, okay. When Willie Rogers leaves, you go, okay. Lamont McDougal, we all had huge expectations for him, but he never really performed at those levels with us. So you kind of go, okay. But when you start like adding it all up, and then you add on top, Jamire Calvin can play. Like that's a different deal. Like we know he can play, and we know he's going to be hard to replace. We know it's going to be very difficult to find another guy who can do what he can do on the outside. So, and I know
we had a walk-on wide receiver playing at outside last year. So we're already pretty thin on outside receivers.
And we, I know we recruited for outside receivers. So, there's that.
Yeah.
And,
they're still freshmen.
Maybe there's a transfer coming that we don't know about, that Jamire Calvin knows about or something. I don't know. But, and maybe he was, going to be moved back inside and didn't want to, share reps with Renard Bell and Travell Harris. Honestly, I don't know. I just know that, losing him is bad. Like, it's just, there's really no other way to put it. It's bad. And so.
Yeah. In this offense, if you're not one of the top,
right,
4 wide receivers, you're not getting many reps.
They're not rotating.
Before, if you had 2 of the best wide receivers in the Pac-12 rotating outside receiver, and and Aesop Winston and Patman, Desmond
Des
Patman,
Patman.
sorry.
Yeah.
15 points.
Yeah, we know about your beer.
Alcohol.
Yep, just go.
But yeah, you had two of the best receivers in the Pac-12 who were rotating the same position and still got tons of targets each. Plenty of film, all that. But that's just not happening here. Like we saw, the running back who starts plays the entire game. Like Jamire Calvin played almost every snap in those 4 games. And so did Bernard Bell, so did Travell Harris, and Calvin Jackson would have if he was healthy, and Lucas Bacon did when he wasn't healthy. So we saw very little like the other guys come in. It's just not the same as we're used to with the air raid. Like, so yeah, maybe it's something like that. But obviously those of you with Coug fan subscriptions probably know more than we do, and we don't have it. And sorry, no offense, Coug fan. We're poor,
And maybe some of it was, he really, for playing virtually every snap, he really didn't have a lot of targets. Most of the targets went to the inside guys, particularly Travell Harris, but also Bernard Bell. So maybe that was part of it. I honestly have no idea. Like we said, we didn't read the story, so I don't know. And by the way, like not that necessarily what he says in the story is the whole story anyway, right? So
exactly.
Right. So who knows? But hopefully there's enough talent left behind. But it does make you a little uncomfortable when the other outside receiver was Lucas Bacon, and not to besmirch the name of Lucas Bacon, but I think it was pretty clear that he was not maybe what producing what you would like to produce out of that position, I guess is the way I would put it. So
when you have Calvin had 17 catches on one side and then Bacon has 5 on the other.
Right. And again, most of the targets went to the inside. So, best of luck to him. I mean, we are well established on this podcast of being ardent player supporters, and very ardent supporters of player agency. And so if Jamire Calvin feels like he can do better somewhere else or something else fits better for him, more power to him. No bitterness whatsoever. I don't, no ill will. I hope that he's awesome. I hope he kills it. I'm glad that he was a Coug for as long as he was. I'm just bummed out that, selfishly, I'm bummed out for the production that we're losing. And, it would have been nice to see him, really blossom into the guy I think we all believe he can be, because that never really happened. And, through no fault of his own. Yeah. I mean, no fault of his own, but it never really happened. So, it would have been really great to see it happen, and I'll definitely be rooting for him to do it somewhere else. But I don't know, man. A lot of talent is left under Rolovich. Again, different circumstances for different things. But when you start adding up, the Tay Martins of the world, and Lamont McDougal, and Will Rogers, and Jamire Calvin, and Gunnar Cruz, and there was an offensive lineman, McGinnis, Dylan McGinnis, right? Or Hunter?
Yep.
Hunter McGinnis. His brother's Dylan, who's still around apparently. Yep. But Hunter McGinnis, a guy who came in as a blue shirt, was recruited by UCLA. They pulled his scholarship at the last minute. WSU landed him as an unrecruited guy, but solid kind of mid to upper 3-star kid. You're kind of hoping he would be a guy who could step in on the line at some point. He transfers out. Remains to be seen how big of a deal any of this is, but it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel great. So,
yeah, I mean, at the very least, Jamire Calvin's a weapon, and it's going to be that's something that whoever plays quarterback next year is not going to have. So
yeah, and he could take the top off of defense in a way that I'm not sure anybody else, maybe Travell Harris, I'm not sure anybody else on the roster can do, and that's kind of a bummer because it's a vertical offense. So
yeah. Okay, let's let's talk about more sad, annoying shit. The women's hoops team, despite another huge weekend from Charlize Ledger Walker, just she is in such a groove. She has been so fun to watch. But other than that, like they drop Arizona on Friday. Like, I mean, they're playing a top 10 team on the road. I know they beat them at home, but basically their offense just failed them in the second half. They held Arizona to 5 points in the third quarter, but they only scored 11. And then Arizona came, turned it back on in the fourth quarter, and it was over. And we just couldn't score outside of Charlize and and then they come in Arizona State. They have another tough one. It's a road game against like not a bad team. Definitely a team you want to beat, but it's definitely a game that you can lose if you don't play well. I think too many turnovers. Again, we talk about the men's team too. Crystal Ledger-Walker is not shooting the way that she was early in the season. So her turnovers become a little more pronounced. Like, she's not turning it over at any higher rate than she has at any point in the year. But when she's not hitting the threes and hitting the mid-range shots that she has been hitting the rest of the season, like, it becomes obvious. Ula Matuga has been playing really well, but at the same time, like, when your point guard who takes a lot of the shots and has the ball a lot isn't scoring the way she has been, it kind of becomes obvious. And I think Bella's been having a lot of foul trouble down low. And it's just, they've had this, one thing that has to be said is Sherilyn Molina has missed these last 3 games that they've lost. And she only plays, 15 to 20 minutes a game, but they often play her in crunch time. So she's obviously a very important player on the team, and she brings like some, a skill set that maybe they don't even have. She's very good on-ball defender, and she's, she's been able to knock down threes, and she drives to the basket, which not a lot of our players do. So she's just kind of a unique skill set, and I think honestly you have her, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of these 3 at least they win.
Yeah. They may or may not need to win all of them. Like, we don't really know.
I'd probably lean towards more that they need to be, just because these 3 teams are teams that would be bad losses. If you don't win, it's a bad loss.
Yes. It's the biggest thing always to keep in mind, though, for everybody is that, like, making it into the tournament is a moving target. And I know that we don't have a lot of experience with this. But I tend to see a lot of like this stuff flying around on Twitter where it's like, oh, well, they have to do this or they have to do that in order to have a chance. They have to do this to make it in. Like, oh, well, now that they've lost Arizona State, they probably have to win these last 3 games in order to get in. And it's like, no, they don't have to. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We don't really know. That's the problem. Like we don't. It's because it's all it's all relative, right? Like making it into the tournament is not a, hey, if you get over this bar, you're in. It's a, if you are one of the top however many teams you get in, right? And so it's why every single year, and this is hilarious because, like, so our friend John Gassaway, who writes for ESPN.com, and he's one of their ESPN Plus insider guys, and we used to write with at Basketball Prospectus. Like, he makes this joke every year about how every single year without fail, national college basketball writers will say, is this the weakest bubble ever? This is the weakest bubble ever. And it's like, no, the bubble is just like weak. Like it just is. Once you start getting down.
Teams that lose games. Like, they lose games.
Yes.
And that's why they're
once you start, they are on the bubble because they lose. They lose stupid ass games to teams they shouldn't lose to. If they weren't losing those games, they wouldn't be on the bubble. So that's where, that's kind of where Wazoo is. It's like, okay, so, and by the way, they are right now in Charlie Cream's projection on ESPN, which is kind of like the big one. There's not quite the cottage industry around the women's bracket that there is around the men's. But we were an 11 seed at some point on Monday. And then at some point this morning, Tuesday morning, it switched and he upgraded us to a 9 seed. I don't know why.
And that could have
meant
like
what happened on
team.
Monday. Yeah,
another team lost or something,
Exactly. It could have been a couple teams lost. I mean, who knows? But we moved back up to a 9 seed. We went from being one of the last 4 in on Monday in his projection to being solidly in on Tuesday, and we didn't play a game, right? So it just all kind of goes to show you, like, all of this stuff is, yes, if WSU wants to have the strongest possible resume, they should win every game from now until the end of the season. Duh. Right? But it's like, okay, so what's the threshold for making it in? Who knows? Can they afford to lose a game? Probably depends on what happens around them, to be honest.
Well, I don't know if the typical requirement that you have to have a winning record to get into postseason play. They got into the women's NIT a couple of years ago with a losing record, so I don't even know if that's a requirement. But it might be for the NCAA tournament. It might be a requirement. So that I think at the bare minimum, we need to win 2 or 3 of these to have a winning record. I think it would look really nice to have a winning record in conference play, which would be having to win all 3. They're all 3 teams that they've already beaten on the road in Colorado, Utah, and Washington. Colorado's the best of the 3. Utah should be a gimme. They should not lose that game. Utah is awful. UW is also pretty bad. But UW also just beat ASU, who WSU couldn't beat. So these are 3 games that they should win. Apparently Sherilyn is out with some personal reasons, and I hope the best for her. I don't know what's going on there, and it doesn't seem like she's going to be back anytime soon. So they're going to have to roll. They've been worse without her. I mean, she's their best player off the bench. And it's been rough when you already have some players that play some heavy minutes. The 2 Ledger Walkers play pretty much the entire game every game, and you have other players that play in a ton too. And you just it's always when you lose someone in rotation. We saw with the men's team too. The player that you're bringing in is not as good, and so it's just that you're getting a little bit less quality down the way. But yeah, I mean, still, even without Sherilyn, these are teams they should beat. Hopefully, Charlize can keep it going, and hopefully, Crystal, can find her shot again. There should be a tournament too, a Pac-12 tournament, which should give them some opportunities to get some more wins. So, where they finish in the standings helps too. You can get a better matchup or something. So that's something to look at as well. So, I mean, honestly, it's fun. Like it's some WSU, the men's team or the women's team, obviously has not had like a bubble team very often. With that Clay team was a bubble team. Yep. The 2 Bennett teams were not bubble teams. They were definitely in. We were just worried about getting like a top 4 seed with those teams. That was it. But the bubble team is an exciting thing. I mean, it turned out with Clay, if they would have won like one more game, they probably would have made it in. Yeah. If they would have won that Washington game, they probably would have made it in, or that UCLA game that they lost when Clay was out. But we're coming down the wire. It's a 30-year drought. I just, I hope they can get all 3 of these and make it feel better, and just kind of make it a no-brainer, because they deserve it. It's been a tough schedule that they've had to play. They didn't get some like gimme wins because they missed Cal twice, and so that it'd be nice to be 11-9 right now, just from an aesthetic perspective. And I gotta believe, as much of these selection committee wants to be objective and looking at the schedules, they must look at the records a little bit and be like, oh, they're only 9-9, so that's not quite as impressive. So, but they played a very tough schedule to get to that 9-9, and they have 2 very good wins, and other impressive road wins as well. So I hope they can just get these 3 and kind of confirm that they're going to break that 30-year drought, and it should be fun to watch. I look forward to it.
My sense, so, I don't know about you, because our teams are typically not in the NCAA tournament conversation. I typically don't actually pay that much attention to what is like how the selection process is going. I know it's an obsession for a lot of people. I just have always been like, I just kind of like keep one eye on it. So
yeah.
What I will say is this: it seems to me, without a whole lot of evidence to back it up, it seems to me that the committees tend to favor teams that have good wins more than they penalize teams with bad losses.
Absolutely. Yes. So you'll see
if you can prove that you can
18
beat
and 13
somebody.
Teams getting this up.
Yes. If you can prove that you can beat somebody, and if you can do it more than once, the committee, it seems to me, and again, this is all like kind of, anecdotal recollection, but it seems to me that they favor, hey, if you've shown you can beat a team 2 or 3 times, even if you have some bad losses, if they're trying to compare 2 teams, and this is where the mid-majors really get penalized, right? Because they don't even have the opportunity to pick up a good win like that. So you take a team that's a middling Power 5 team that has beaten a couple of really good teams, even if they've also lost to some bad teams. You kind of go, well, they at least have that. They have that in them. The mid-major, you go, maybe not. And so this is all to say, WSU with wins over Arizona and UCLA, those are 2 feathers in their pocket that really nobody can take away. And I would have to think that, when they start comparing resumes, if for some reason they don't win these last 3, and, let's say maybe they lose 2 out of the 3, and they're trying to compare resumes with somebody else, there aren't very many teams, I think, that are going to be able to have, on the bubble anyway, that are going to be able to have wins as good as Arizona. Because Arizona right now, in this latest projection, Arizona is a 3 seed, and I think a 3 seed, and then UCLA is a 2 seed. So
UCLA is number 8 in net, and Arizona is number 11, and WSU is number 38, which is typically RPI history, net history, safely in. Yeah, so it does make you a kind of bubble team depending on where you're at with wins, but they got those wins, so hopefully it's enough.
Depending on bid stealers too. That's always the thing you can't account for is the bid stealers.
Yes.
So those at-large bids can sort of start to shrink.
So the more conference tournaments that are canceled, the better.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, you laugh, but it's true. It's the more of those auto bids that go straight to the first place team, the better. So.
Yep. Okay, so I'll also say if they end up at 10 or 11 over at 9, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's actually almost a better spot.
Maybe win out, win the next 3, win 1 or 2 at the Pac-12 tournament, get yourself a 7 seed. Just get out of that, because you look at the top 4 teams. We talked about this. Stanford, UConn, South Carolina, and Baylor are a notch above everyone else.
That's pretty much automatic annihilation in the second round, more or less. What you'd really like to be is out. Like ideally, you want to be all the way outside of that 7 to 10 range. Like either be an 11 or be a 6, but don't be in that 7 to 10 range.
Truthfully, with this squad, with Charlize being a freshman, and I don't know. I'm just going to assume that Crystal's going to come back next year too. Getting as this kind of first year, this turnaround year, or not necessarily a turnaround year, but I mean it is. That just getting any, if they got a win in the tournament would be amazing. So get there, whatever seed it is, and win that game. It'll be just euphoric. But okay, so we're already at hour 33. We got. I had a listener question we need to answer too. So let's quickly run through. So volleyball, huge weekend. Just swept away. Took care of Colorado really with relative ease.
Colorado was 4-0 too.
Yeah, the Friday match or Thursday. It was Thursday, Saturday. Yeah, the Thursday match was a little hairy for a moment. WSU quickly went up 2-0. Colorado won the third set and then had a huge lead late. I think they were up 22-19 in the fourth set. So you're like, oh, shit, they're going to force a fifth. And, of course, the fifth is only to 15. Anyone can win that. As we saw, Cal beat Stanford, and Cal hasn't beaten Stanford for 10 years. They forced that fifth set. They got in a nice round the fifth set, whatever. So you're just like, don't avoid. When you're the better team, just don't. You don't want to get that fifth set. But WSU was able to come back, close that one down, and then they just annihilated them 3 sets on Saturday. Colorado, yeah, like you said, they were undefeated coming in. They hadn't played very good teams, but whatever, knock them off their perch. And now WSU's tied for second with a bunch of teams. They're right there to make another tournament. It's great.
Yeah, top 25 team.
What are they? 19, 18,
I think they're up to
17
now. I think they're up to 17. So, yeah, kicking ass. They are fun to watch. Most of their broadcasts are on the internet. Pretty easy to find. So, check them out.
Yeah, just like we said, follow their Twitter. They always have the links to where to find them. Yeah, they're 17th. Moving on.
Yeah, and we will give them. Honestly, like let's be honest. They deserve more attention than what we give them on this podcast.
We just don't know that much about volleyball.
Yeah, and we don't know that much, and honestly, it's just there's so damn much going on right now. We're not used to this, so
there's too many sports.
Good news for them is their season will extend past the basketball season, so excited to pay maybe a little even more attention to them after basketball ends here in a few weeks. So
I will say I do make a point to watch all their matches now at this point. They're too fun.
I try hard.
And then soccer team, again, we couldn't watch it. It was a mystery. All we got was pictures and some highlights, but they got down early against Eastern on a penalty, and then just dominated from then on out to win 4-1 over Eastern. I don't know if you saw the highlights of Elise's goal, but I don't think she meant it. But it's Elise Bennett's goal. Looked like she may have been trying to cross the ball, but it knocks off the crossbar and in, which is when things are going well when that happens. So yeah,
they're really good, and
they have attacking players.
Yeah, I'm super bummed out that most of their games are not going to be able to be watched because they're playing in the bubble, they're playing in the Big Ass
because of the weather.
Yeah, because of the weather, and whatever. It's a little bit of snow. Come on. But
you can't really. There's no place to put the camera. That's
that's the issue, right? Like the bubble is just a, it's a I don't know what would you call it? Like am I even use the word right? Concave roof, where it's there's really no way to go up and take it. I mean, I assume that the football team, when they're in there, they have a scissor lift or something that they use for videoing. Stuff, But I would also guess they're probably not using the entire field when they do that, which that's probably
they're just doing 30 yards.
Yes. So it's probably part of the issue for soccer.
And the camera's not moving.
Yeah, pretty bummed out that we're not going to get to watch very many games with them. Maybe they'll play some of their games outside, and we'll get to see some of them.
Maybe later in the season. Yeah.
Later in the season, I don't know.
But as we know, winter can go till May in Pullman, so.
Yeah, it's true. Every year I was in school, we had snow after my birthday, and my birthday is on March 13th. So, and not like flurries, but substantial snow.
Hey, everyone has a story of weather. Everyone I've heard of snow in finals week. So, but yeah. So hopefully they we get when they're on the road. Hopefully we'll get to watch them play. But the nice thing about the thing you lose Morgan Weaver, you lose Trinity Rodman, you get a little bit worried about the attacking play, but they seem to have Alyssa Gray and Elise Bennett and some some others. They have some young good attacking players, so hopefully it seems we still have some of that speed. Obviously Morgan Weaver and Trinity Rodman are very fast. Trinity Rodman is going to be like that replacement for Weaver as that burner forward that can just torch teams. But I think there's still just a lot of attacking talent on this team. They have a very good midfield. They're ranked. They've looked the part in their first 2 matches, I think we're gonna kind of see them still be good, and that's fun because we are a soccer school. So
yes, we are, and we know our faithful listeners know how much you and I love our soccer. So
yes, and which just bums me out that we can't watch the matches.
I know,
crazy,
God.
We had one match that's during the
wish
Super
I could
Bowl.
see.
One match is during the Super Bowl, and then one match that's not even on TV. We had one question. I forwarded it to you, Jeff. I don't know if you had a chance to think about it or even see it. From Jeff White, who I know he's a longtime listener. Sorry, I didn't mean to say your full name, dude. Bleep that. From Jeff, Jeff with a G, not with a J. He says, dudes, I love, call us dudes, I love it. I love Ken Pom, but I don't know all the weeds and deets. Yeah, it's pretty tough. We've been digging in it for over a decade, so that helps. But when taking a broad view of the rankings, what number range does a team need to be in to have a realistic shot at an at-large bid? I know it's not really the case this year, but it's fun to have a competent team with a bright future. The first thing I will say is Ken Pom rankings don't necessarily have anything to do with the tournament. The committee says they use it, but I honestly don't think they do that much. But I will say, when it was RPI, the difference between Ken Pom and what the committee was doing was like massive.
Yes.
But but now they actually use an adjusted offensive efficiency is a significant portion, offensive and defensive efficiency, and the efficiency margin is a significant portion of their net tool, which has replaced RPI. So they are a little closer, and I think we'll probably start seeing Ken Pom look a lot more similar to those. But the one key difference is that net awards teams for wins. Well, Ken Pom does not give a fuck if you won the game. It only cares about your efficiency margin. So yes, it does matter if you won the game, but it only matters if how much you won the game by against a team, like a certain team. So like it doesn't matter. Like if you beat, it matters. So for Ken Pom, it's going to matter a lot more. Like it'll matter only marginally different if you lose to the number 1 team by 1 point or you beat the number 1 team by 1 point. That's only going to be marginally different but in the net rankings, it's going to be huge. And in the committee, the way they select you is going to be huge. Like you could be the number 2 team on Ken Pom if you play like Gonzaga's number 1 team right now. If you played Gonzaga 30 times and lost to them by 1 point every time, you would be the number 2 team on Ken Pom. You'd be 0-30, and you'd be the number 2 team on Ken Pom because you would be pretty much as good as the number 1 team. And that's just an extreme example, but that's. But all that being said, and I'll let you, Jeff, say kind of where you got to be to feel good about it.
So which that's always the hard thing, right? Because Ken Pom is trying to measure the true quality of a team for predictive purposes, right? So like when they're trying to, when you look at a Ken Pom ranking, it's like, it's
a gambling tool.
Yes. Like, and it used to actually be a gambling cheat code, and it's not so much anymore. The
Vegas pretty much does the same thing now.
But okay, so there's that piece, and then you have to understand that the tournament committee the resume is a different thing, right? Resumes are not true quality. Resumes are based on wins, right? So it's kind of a combination of wins and quality, right? Which is where things like, in fact, this was an article I posted today. Maybe I'll tweet it out. But wins above bubble, right, tries to sort of capture both how good you are and also how many wins you get. Net tries to sort of capture that a little bit by incorporating a win element also to the efficiency margin element. So that's all a roundabout way to say looking at your ranking on Ken Pom is sort of dicey. And I'll even like expand on it just a tiny bit to say in the last couple of years, there have been some pretty wild outliers in terms of teams that were ranked fairly low on Ken Pom that still got into the tournament as an at-large bid. So, for example, as I'm looking at not last season, because obviously there was no tournament last season, but 2 years ago, Temple.
When RPI was still in use, yeah.
Yes.
RPI was still in use 2 years ago, yeah.
I think 2 years ago was the first year of net. I'm not.
No, I think net was the first
that.
year net was going to be used for wasn't it last year?
Yeah, I think it was the year before that. But anyway, okay. So as we go down, looking kind of at the rankings of some of the teams that got in. So here's one example from 2019. St. John's got in with a record of 21-13. They went out in the second round of the Big East tournament. 21-12 was what they were.
Okay, you're right. It was 2019. You're right. That was the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So St. John's 21-12 went out in the second round of the Big East tournament, ranked 88th. 88th in Ken Palm, got in as an at-large team. So, okay, right? That's a pretty crazy at-large. But there were others that year too, where it was like, okay, so scrolling back up a little bit, Temple ranked 69th, got in as an at-large team. Seton Hall ranked 60th, got in as an at-large. Arizona State 57th, got in as an at-large.
St. John's was 81st, and they got their butts kicked by Arizona State, but still 81st.
Yeah, so 81st before they got in. Yeah, so that's a good point. The year before that, again, as we're kind of looking, maybe not quite as extreme, but Providence at 63rd got in as an at-large team. St. Bonaventure at 68th. I'm pretty sure they were not the auto bid that year from the A10. So 68th, they got in. Okay, so those are outliers. Where you typically want to be in order to say, okay, like we are legitimately in the.
Wait, were those all just A10 teams that you just said?
No, there was a Big East. There was a Big East in there.
Okay, yeah. That's right. Sometimes the Big East and A10 conflate to me.
A couple of Big Easts, yeah. So anyway, so kind of the issue was, all right, so if the question is where do you need to be in order to be like a legit bubble team, to have a legit claim to one of those last handful of bids, it's like 40 to 50 is kind of where you want to be. Like if you are in that range, 40 to 50 in Ken Palm, you're probably going to be in the serious conversation for a bubble. You've probably racked up enough good wins, decent wins to be on the bubble. It's certainly not a guarantee. Like, for example, 2 years ago, 2019, as I'm just kind of scrolling up here, teams ranked between 40 and 50 who did not get in the tournament include Nebraska, Lipscomb, Penn State, and NC State. Penn State didn't even get in the NIT at 14 and 18, but they were 43rd because the Big Ten was so insane. TCU was 40th. They didn't get in. Clemson was 36th. They didn't get in. Texas was 25th. They didn't get in at 21 and 16. So nothing's really a guarantee when it comes to Ken Palm. But if you want to seriously be in the conversation,
if you talk
40 to 50 is kind of your low end.
And this
barring,
is where we
barring
talked about
something
the women.
weird.
Where we talked about with the women is wins matter. That's why you see the Big East teams that can get in with a low ranking. Is the Big East has so many good teams. You're gonna play
it's just so many teams.
You're gonna have so many chances to beat a good team. So if you just hit one or two of those, you have those marquee wins, and then you get it. And we saw when the Pac-10 was going good. Pac-10, not 12. When the Pac-10 was going good, and when 7 teams would make it in, you'd see teams that were 9-9 in conference play and make the tournament and have a pretty decent seed, a 9 or 10 seed. And it's because they just had these opportunities, so many opportunities to get big games. I wanted to highlight this. WSU actually has a pretty good example of this. The Bennett's last year, the Taylor Rochester Baines team, 08-09. They finished the season 49th. They were actually, when selection time, because they dropped a bit because they lost to St. Mary's at the end of the year. And this is before Ken started putting the previous ranking of the game on there, so he doesn't have that. But if I remember right, they were around 40 before that game because they dropped quite a bit because they got whooped by St. Mary's, who was not a super highly rated team. But But so WSU was like around 40. So they're right in that spot where you think, oh, they're in at-large bid. But they were only 17 and 15. Like they had some good wins. They beat UCLA and they beat Arizona State. Like they had some good wins by the end of the year. But they just didn't have like a great looking record. They didn't have enough good wins. And so that's where, maybe the quality of your team is different than the resume of your team. And so that year WSU had a pretty quality team, actually not definitely in the range of a team that could have potentially made the tournament, but they just didn't have enough wins to get into the tournament. So, they could have beaten a lot of the teams that were in the tournament, that got at large bids.
Except for St. Mary's. But couldn't have beat St. Mary's.
Yeah, except for St. But as you see, like Temple got an at large bid and they're just one spot behind them in the final KenPom rankings that year. So, it's hard to say if you're top 30. That Texas from a few years ago is an outlier, but like if you're top 30, generally you're good enough to get in. But if you're top 30, you're probably gonna win. Like especially in the Pac-10 these days, Pac-12 these days. If you're top 30, you're probably gonna win most of your games. So you're gonna get enough wins to get in. It's hard to say. Again, like KenPom is a tool that they use, they say, but
I question how seriously
I don't. I think they will look at net 99% and KenPom 1% because honestly I don't disagree with that. Yeah, there has to be a winning aspect to qualify for the postseason.
Yes. Ultimately wins are what matters. So. I
use that extreme example. If you play the number one team 30 times, you lose all 30. Sorry, you don't get a go. I'm sorry. You got to win some games. And we can't just if you just made it totally about an adjusted efficiency metric, you would even further put the mid majors at a disadvantage, because then the big teams would never play a mid-major. They would only play each other. Like they would only play each other. You'd have to be a mid-major. The only mid-majors that would qualify would be, actually, I don't know. Now I'm saying it. There may be some teams that would have, I'm thinking like Denver from a few years ago and Belmont, who might have made it in because they just beat the shit out of their other teams. I don't know. Yeah. Now I'm talking myself out of it. Well, but it's just, I do think they would never, like a big team, if it was only based on your adjusted efficiency, like a big team would probably never play a little team, just in case like your team didn't take it seriously enough and you like only beat that little team by 5 points and it looks bad on your adjusted efficiency. But
I would say if you really, really, really are like wanting to get into the weeds of a stat that actually is somewhat predictive of where a team needs to be in order to get into the tournament, that wins above bubble stat is really kind of the best one. And it's it's not super complicated, but I don't really want to go into the weeds of it here on the show. And I'll go ahead and like throw the link into the show, the article. So when I put the post on Kook Center, I'll put a link to an article in there that sort of explains wins above bubble and why it's a good metric to use if you're really trying to like accomplish what I think the question is asking, which is, okay, so if I'm trying to figure out what is the point at which we're sort of like near the bubble, wins above bubble is a really good way to look at that. And basically it just measures like, basically how are you doing compared to what a bubble team would do and what a hypothetical bubble team would do. And so right now, Washington State, so the easiest to access one is on barttorvik.com. Right now we are, sorry, just a sec. I can tell you, hold on. This is great radio. Sorry. We are 133rd in wins above bubble. And this is really one where you want to be like in the top, like 45 to 50. Cause that's where theoretically the bubble is, right? Cause that's about how many at large bids there are once you take out the auto bids. So we are quite a ways off that pace. Although I will say we were like right about like, -2 on wins above bubble before Monday night, which would have put us right about 100, and we dropped like 30 spots by losing to Washington. So that was a bad loss. If you're an NCAA tournament team, and that's kind of what wins above bubble is trying to capture: good wins, bad losses.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a bad loss if you're fancying yourself an NCAA tournament team. Losing to Washington is bad. So, yeah. So that's what I would look at if I were you, is that wins above bubble metric. That's a pretty decent predictor of basically it's a combination of team quality and resume. So
that's where Jeff found it is Bart, BART, Torvik, TORVIK.com. It's kind of like a Ken Palmish type thing. Like if you
except way more loaded down and way more confusing.
Yeah, I will encourage you to read all of his like kind of FAQs and his like explainers to like, he basically says like why I'm different than KenPom and stuff, and it's very interesting. He's very interesting to look at. He definitely he does things similarly to KenPom, but and then different in some very specific and important ways. So so take a look at that. I'd love to get Bart on sometime.
We should do that.
We actually should get him on. That would be fun.
I don't know if you listened to his interview with Jordan Sperber, the guy who does Hoop Vision, but that was a fun as hell interview to listen to. Like, the thing I love about Bart, and I know this is like a total tangent, but he does not take himself too seriously. So if you listen to our interview with Ken Pomeroy, Ken takes his website very seriously. Ken is a pretty serious. I mean, he has a good sense of humor, but he's a pretty serious guy too.
He does, yeah.
And it's like, so, and his website is it's his livelihood, right? Like this is his moneymaker, and so he's very sort of meticulous about his site and what he puts on the site. And one of the big things from our interview was he talked about how like, hey, I don't add anything to the site unless I'm really convinced it's going to add something, and also usually I'll try to take something away, so it doesn't get too cluttered, doesn't get, there's not too much. And basically I want to make sure like everything I put in there really adds value. Bart is, so number one, his site is free, unlike KenPom's site. So KenPom's site is, $20 a year, which is an amazing value. We say that all the time. Bart's site is completely free. So Bart's site is maybe a little less attractive, and also has like literally anything that went through Bart's head.
Also kind of looks similar.
It looks similar. It's got the green and the red, and a lot of the tempo free stats are the same, but it's like literally anything else that went through Bart's head at some point as, I wonder what this would look like, or this might be interesting, or literally anything like that ends up on the site. And like, you can like play around with it and mess around with it. But the best part is that he's like, basically he has like a giant disclaimer at his site, like, hey, use any of this stuff at your own risk. like a lot of this stuff has not been rigorously means tested. Like, we're just sort of like, I'm throwing out ideas and you can decide how much value it has, go for it. So I kind of love that, because he doesn't take it too seriously. And it's full of just sort of crazy, wonky, weird stats and graphs and all kinds of crazy stuff, which is part of why I don't use it that much, because it's sort of like, it's kind of hard to navigate. But yeah, you go to their main page, you sort it by wins above bubble, you'll kind of see what we're talking about on that.
I do like one graph. I think if you go to like the team page for WSU, the game scores are very interesting. It's like fun to look at, like the games that are good, the games that are bad.
Yep.
It kind of sees why you rise and you fall in these metrics and stuff. He does adjusted efficiency for in conference play, which KenPom doesn't do.
Yep.
He definitely like just like, for example, his in his ratings, WSU is rated 52nd in adjusted defensive efficiency, and KenPom's I think we're 43rd. So there are some differences. Like, they don't use. So actually, he uses a Pythagorean ranking tool, which KenPom used to use, and now uses adjusted efficiency difference. So his are kind of a window into what the KenPom rankings would have been like 10 years ago.
I think that Ken's adjusted efficiency margin that he uses is just sort of like a translation of the Pythagorean stuff, but I'm not positive about that. I remember when he went to it a couple of years ago, I read, or 2-3 years ago when he went to that, I remember reading about it. I thought it was just sort of like, hey, this is pretty much the same thing, but it's easier to understand in this way. So I'm not really sure. I think that Torvik calculates his just a little bit differently. And obviously like Ken Pomeroy's is like, I mean, it's proprietary, right? Like, you know, he's got his own little calculation, and, you know, Torvik's got his. And so, you know, whatever. I mean, it's all like approximations and little adjustments and, you know, whatever. So, but, you know, Torvik does some cool things. Like you can do an adjustment for like your effective field goal percentage, right? So like where on Ken Pomeroy, your adjustment really is just your efficiency, and everything else is just sort of like raw rate stats. You can actually do an adjustment here, like to see like, okay, so given your opponents, what's your effective field goal percentage actually? Well, it's, you know, when you click the little adjust button, it's the effective field goal percentage defense drops from 30 to 35, right? Like, cause some of that is built on, you know, not very good shooting teams that, you know, they played early in the year, you know, that sort of thing. So the adjustments, and then you look at, you know, turnover percentage drops to 308th. I mean, whatever. So anyway, it's kind of interesting, you know, and again, it's always one of those things where you're never really sure, like, you know, exactly how valid the stats are, right? We talk about, you know, validity, but it is always sort of interesting to kind of look at and you know, play around with. It's definitely the kind of site you go and you play around a little bit and just kind of figure out, like, you know, like, hey, what if this? And he has a lot of stuff that's like, you know, what if life was like this, or what if this guy played, or what if this guy didn't play, or, you know, what, you know, so.
For example, I tweeted out a graph or a few, like early in the season when WC's offense was like really, and like Bonton's efficiency was really low, and Raps was like low. And like someone had tweeted out a graph of like every player since like 2000, like however far Bart's numbers go back, and you could see it was like 15 or 20 years, and you could see Ryan Rapp and Isaac Bonton very clearly from this season on that graph. Like there was, because you can Bart has this cool thing where you can like have all the team logos for everything, so it looks pretty cool. Like his site is super fun. Like, yeah. I highly recommend it.
If you have time to play around with it, it's definitely fun to mess around with.
But yeah, like it was so like WSU had these like historically weird and bad offensive players going. Both of them are much more normal at this point. But yeah, so it's, you know, Bart's site's fun. I don't know how we got talking about Bart. I can see you were talking about wins above bubble.
Yeah.
We definitely got to get Bart on maybe in the summer. Like, it'd be super fun. Or maybe he'll come on before, you know, tournament time. I don't know. That's probably when people want to talk to him.
He's probably in high demand there.
Yeah, but he's fun. bartorvik.com. It's you know, if $20 for KenPom is too much for you, you can get some value out of Bart Torvik as well.
Yep.
So, but I highly recommend just paying Ken the $20 too, because his site's a little more simpler to digest. And
I mean, Bart has a section called Funalytics. Like it's really, I kid you not when I say, like, Bart's site is designed around like really just having fun and playing around with silly things, and some of it is kind of semi-serious. Like Ken's is, you know, serious analysis. Bart's site is like kind of serious, but also like, you know, how could we play around with some of these numbers and make them interesting? So yeah, it's fun. I like it. I don't go there probably as much as I should, but
yeah. Well, Jeff, it is almost midnight.
Hell yeah, it is.
This is our log. I can officially say episode 113 is our. Oh yeah, hopefully we didn't.
Oh my God, we're over 2 hours.
I know we didn't. Yeah, dude, we're over 2 hours. This is our longest episode ever.
Well, hopefully the guy, what was it, Jeff, right? Jeff, who asked the question. Hopefully it answered the question about what you were looking for there.
If he made it this far. So yeah,
I guess we'll find out.
If you made it this far, and if you have not rated us 5 stars, Like, what is wrong with you? Go to your app and rate us 5 stars and leave us a review and say you listened to the 2-hour episode. That's how much you love this show. So you made it to the end until Craig's yelling at you to do 5 stars. Write all that in the review. I mean, if you have any more questions like Jeff and want to make us like talk an extra half an hour, podcast vs everyone at gmail.com, podcast versus everyone at gmail.com. At the Craig Powers on Twitter is me, at pod vs everyone, pod versus everyone is Jeff on Twitter, and go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.